What if 1111 isn't a cute cosmic wink, but a pressure gauge? Most people think synchronicities cause breakthroughs or that they're random noise. Here's the twist. A spike before a big shift is your attention straining toward a choice you haven't made yet. Numbers flare because your future is knocking louder. In the next minutes, I'll show you a simple frame to read those moments without superstition and a 40-second protocol so the next 1111 becomes a step, not a screenshot. No grand claims. Just a clear way to move when the pattern appears. Ready to catch the knock before the door swings open? Then let's begin right where the story always starts, at the threshold. It starts small. You glance up at a cafe clock 11:11. Cute. You smile. You sip. You forget. An hour later, you're at a crosswalk. The street sign blinks 11. The cab you flag ends in 111. Your receipt prints with $11.11. You laugh it off. Something in your chest takes notes. That night, you're scrolling apartments, jobs, tickets out of a life that's 2 sizes too tight. You tell yourself you're just browsing. Still, the listings blur into a single question. Are you staying or are you going? You close the laptop. The microwave says 11:11 like it's been waiting there. We like to imagine fate as a trumpet. Mostly, it's a knock. A soft, specific rhythm repeated until you either open or turn up the music. Why do the knocks bunch up right before a breakthrough? Because the door is finally within reach. Notice the texture of these days. You wake earlier, mind buzzing. Old routines feel itchy. Tiny irritations speak in full sentences. The friend who never texts suddenly calls. Your feed serves 3 stories about the exact city you swore you'd never move to. Coincidence? Sure, but also, your attention is stalking the edges of a decision. Think about the mind like a film director with a flashlight. It can light the whole room dimly or pick out one face in a crowd. On ordinary days, the beam sweeps lazily. On threshold days, the beam tightens. It hunts. Details that match your unspoken question flare like cat eyes in the dark. Numbers. Phrases. Doors you've walked past 100 times. Click, click, click. Is it magic? Or is it mercy away? Your perception gathers you up. You don't need to solve that tonight. You only need to notice how the story builds its drum. Here's our character, sitting in a kitchen that hums with the same old appliances. The refrigerator breathes. The radiator ticks. The phone face down on the table hums once. 11:11. He flips it over. For a second, the room sharpens, like someone turned up the contrast. He remembers the email he hasn't answered, the application he half finished, the relationship he has kept alive with nostalgia more than love, the question he has tried to dodge. What if the numbers aren't a command, but a mirror? What if they're showing you that your inner metronome has switched tempo? You pour water. You lean on the counter. The day feels both heavy and bright. There's a name for this, the moment before. Most of us feel it and assume we're anxious, or we manufacture a crisis to release the pressure. But watch closely, and you'll see how the pattern clusters right before a clean pivot, not because the universe plays favorites, but because you're finally ready to hear a sentence that's been forming for months. Another day passes. You take a different route to work. The train doors open onto a poster with the exact phrase from last night's journal. Make the call. You freeze. You laugh. You look around to see if anyone else saw it. They didn't. That's fine. This movie was shot for you. Ask a simple question. What choice is 11:11 asking me to admit? Not decide yet. Admit. The honesty itself is the hinge. You stand at your building's entrance. The keypad lights blink. You key in your code, 1111. You never noticed the symmetry before. You step inside, and the lobby smells like rain. The elevator arrives, doors parting like a breath held too long. You ride up with a neighbor you've never spoken to. They're holding a box labeled with the company you almost applied to. You smile. They smile back. The floor dings. 11. You don't need to force a meaning on any single moment. Let them stack. Let the rhythm announce itself. A cluster doesn't demand a leap. It requests a conversation. With yourself. With the possible. With the part of you that already knows. If this is you right now, if the pattern is tapping, try a tiny act of respect. Whisper, I hear you. Place your palm on the doorframe when you leave your room. Feel how solid it is. Feel how ready you are to cross it when the time is true. One last thing before we move on. Drop a single word in the comments. Ready? It tells your future you that you showed up for this conversation today. And if you want more of these grounded, cinematic deep dives, subscribe quietly, like a promise you make to yourself. Because the knock won't get louder forever. But if you learn its cadence, you won't need it to. Picture this. You wake up already scanning. Not doom-scrolling scanning. Your eyes land on small things they usually skip. The chipped mug. The unread email. The clock. 11:11. It feels like a nudge. Why now? Because your mind has quietly switched. Modes. It's no longer grazing the day. It's hunting. Think of attention like a spotlight operated by a patient stagehand. Most days the beam is wide and soft. On threshold days, it tightens to a sharp cone. It hunts for anything that matches. The question humming under your ribs. Should I stay? Should I go? Should I leap? When the question sharpens, the world seems to answer back through headlines, overheard phrases, and yes, repeating numbers. There's a simple, beautiful reason. Your brain runs a doorway called the gatekeeper. You don't need the textbook. Name. Just know it tags what feels important and lets those cues through first. Like a bouncer at a crowded club, it lifts the velvet rope for anything that looks like your current obsession. Shopping for a blue car? Suddenly every street is a parade of blue. Wondering about a move? Cities you never noticed appear everywhere. Ask a big question? Patterns that rhyme with yes start to glow. But here's the twist. The glow doesn't create the event. It spotlights it. The world is always noisy. 11:11 has been. On clocks since clocks existed. What changes is that your inner question turns up the contrast. You glance at the time more. You remember the hits and forget the misses. The pattern clusters because your attention is clustering. Does that steal the magic? Not at all. It reveals the choreography. Your intention and the world meet halfway. On the stage, imagine your mind as a birdwatcher in a dense forest. When you first enter, every leaf is just green. Then someone whispers, listen for the 3-note call. Suddenly, you hear it everywhere. Was the call always there? Yes. Were you ready to filter for it? Not until your desire tuned your ears. 11:11 is a 3-note call for people on the brink of choice. It snaps your focus to a rhythm that says, something's lining up. Let's ground it with a small story. A designer named Louisa has been whispering, I think I'm done here for months. She's not miserable, just underlit. One week, the numbers gang up. 11:11 on the kitchen stove. 1,111 likes on an old post. An invoice at $111.10. She laughs and rolls her eyes, then notices she's joking her way past the same question. That afternoon, her train pulls into platform 11 at, of course, 11:11. She finally admits it out loud on the ride. I want out. She doesn't quit that day. The admission simply unlocks her next tiny behavior. She opens a new document and names it Portfolio Refresh. The pattern didn't push her. It pointed. Why do spikes happen right before a breakthrough? Because breakthroughs are not one moment. They are a countdown. 10, 9, 8. Adjust your attention. 7, 6. Collect signals. 5, 4. Admit the desire. 3, 2. Prepare an action. 1. Move. The numbers you notice are like the beep of a heart monitor before a sprint. Not the sprint, the signal your body is shifting gears. There's also a softer reason you notice more. You're restless. You check the time more often when something inside is pacing. Every extra glance is another chance to land on symmetry. And your memory is sticky for symmetry. We're built that way. Your mind loves patterns because patterns mean prediction, and prediction means safety. When your life is about to change, the animal in you wants new footholds. It will grab any repeating ledge can find out. Does this mean everything is just bias? It means bias is the brush, not the painting. You can understand the brush and still be moved by the art. You can smile at the mechanics and still receive the message. In fact, understanding frees you from ghost chasing. You stop asking, is this a sign from beyond? And start asking, what is my attention trying to highlight right now? That question is kinder and far more useful. Here's a tiny one-breath experiment you can do the next time 1111 appears. Don't make a wish. Make a list silently, 3 words. Name the theme you've been circling. Move, pitch, release. Then ask, what is the smallest honest step that matches this word? Not the bravest, the smallest. If your word is move, maybe the step is measuring rent in the new city. If your word is pitch, it's drafting an email subject line. Honor the signal by letting it point to something you can actually touch. Notice, too, what not to do. Don't overfit. If the elevator lands on 11, great. If it lands on 12, don't force a prophecy. Let the rhythm breathe. A cluster is a chorus, not a command. Your job is to listen for the melody and decide how you want to dance. You may be wondering, if it's my attention, why does it still feel other? Because change always feels like a duet. Part you, part world. Part choice, part chance. When the duet is on key, the day hums. You look up at another 1111, and instead of asking for rescue, you nod like you recognize an old friend. The pattern is not proof. It's permission. In a moment, we'll widen the lens and talk about the tide that rises before the leap, the emotional physics of almost. For now, keep this simple map. Question sharpens, spotlight narrows, patterns glow, and a door you've avoided comes into focus. When it does, you won't need to decode the universe. You'll need to tell the truth you've been whispering and take one living step in its direction. Before a wave breaks, it gathers itself. Water pulls back, the shore stretches wider, and for a breath, the ocean looks quieter, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is winding. Breakthroughs have that pullback. Your life looks ordinary. Your calendar still fits on one screen, and yet the day has a pressure in it, like weather about to turn. That's the tide. Think of your intention like the moon. It doesn't shove the sea. It draws it, quietly, over hours. When you finally admit what you want, even in a whisper, the world organizes around that gravity. Small currents start to align. You notice more 1111 moments not because they command a leap, but because they mark the water rising. There, the glints of light on the curve of the swell. There's also the elastic. Picture a rubber band stretched between who you've been and who you're becoming. For a long time, it sits slack. Then you begin to pull. Conversations change. Searches change. The band tightens. Tension grows. When it's close to release, every tiny movement makes it sing. That song is the cluster, the staircase of symmetry that shows up everywhere at once. Not magic tricks. Resonance? You felt this in the body. Sleep, it's lighter. Food tastes louder. Rooms feel too small. You look at a project you've tolerated for months, and you can't unsee the mismatch. It's not burnout, it's ripeness. Fruits don't announce maturity with trumpets. They simply soften and let go when touched. Your life does the same. 1111 taps the skin. Are you ready to drop? Here's a scene. Early morning. A runner ties shoes by the door. She's trained for weeks without drama. Then, the week before her first race, the signs gang up receipts, street numbers. A bus route 111 stopping right as she steps outside. Is the city conspiring? Maybe. Or maybe her whole system has entered almost. When we're almost, our senses sharpen. We're at the runway threshold. Engines humming, waiting for clearance. Lights on the tarmac look brighter because the next move carries weight. Skeptical part of you chimes in, can't this all just be nerves? It can. And nerves are not the enemy. They're electricity gathering for the leap. What if you treated nerves like the ocean's pullback, the necessary gathering before the crest? Instead of medicating them into silence, you let them inform your timing. Ask softly, what is this energy asking me to complete? A call? A draft? A conversation? Then give it one clear channel, not another metaphor. Dawn. The hour before sunrise often looks darkest, not because night is winning, but because light is compressing behind the horizon. The sky holds its breath. Streetlights buzz. Birds test a note. Numbers line up. It can feel like a private countdown. That's the mare, the swell of readiness, pressing against the seam of your old life. Let's bring this near with a pocket practice you can do in under a minute. Not the full protocol yet, just a tide check. The next time 1111 appears, stop what you're doing and notice 3 layers. Body, room, horizon. Body. What's the simplest sensation right now? Warmth, tightness, breath. Room. What's one small thing that wants adjusting? A window, posture, one tab closed. Horizon. What is the smallest next honest milestone in the direction you're afraid to name? You don't need to act yet. Just register the readings. Like a surfer watching sets, you're learning the rhythm of your water dot, because here's the danger of ignoring the tide. We mistake buildup for bad luck. The printer jams, the meeting moves, the flight delays. We call it resistance. Often, it's choreography. The swell is aligning you with a cleaner takeoff. If you rush because you're uncomfortable, you miss the moment when the board and the wave match speed. If you wait forever because you want certainty, the swell passes and you're left paddling in flat water, explaining why it wasn't meant to be. So where does 1111 fit in? It's the beeping gate at a crosswalk, changing from wait to walk. It won't carry you across, but it tells you this is an opening. On tide days, treat each instance like a breath mark in a piece of music. Musicians. Write those tiny commas above notes to remind themselves to inhale. 1111 is an inhale mark. Breathe, check your alignment, and prepare the next bar. That's all. A short story to anchor it. Mateo, a teacher, has a sabbatical option he's shelved for years. In late autumn, the tide rises. He sees 1111 5 times in 2 days. He wants to ask for a sign, but instead he listens to the ones already here. Body, restless. Room, desk stacked with projects that no longer fit his arc. Horizon, one application form due Friday. He doesn't jump to yes. He commits to one action, requests the reference letter. The swell meets him. 2 hours later, his mentor emails first unprompted. If you ever apply for that sabbatical, I'd love to support you. Coincidence? Sure, also tied. What if? You treated the spike not as a prophecy, but as favorable wind. Sailors don't argue with wind. They trim the sail. What's trimming for you today? Closing a loop. Clearing a drawer. Sending a line. Choosing a date. A small, precise motion that lets the wind do its job. And if you're thinking, but what if I misread it? Good. Humility keeps you honest. The ocean does not punish a missed wave. It offers another. That's the mercy of cycles. That's why we don't cling to any single 1111. We surf the pattern, not the moment dot. If this lands, drop a single word below. Aligned. It helps you name your tide out loud, and it tells me to keep making grounded, cinematic guides like this. Quietly hit subscribe if you want a companion on these thresholds. No hype, just clear maps for when the water starts to rise. When we return, will protect you from two classic traps that drown good momentum. Getting lost in signs and outsourcing your move to the sky. Ready to keep your feet on the board while the wave builds? There are two places people drown right before a breakthrough. Not in failure, in fascination. The first is obsession, turning every flicker into a command. The second is bypass, outsourcing your move to the sky. Let's put rails on both. Obsession looks like this. You start chasing the pattern instead of the path. You refresh the clock at 11:10 to catch 11:11. You rework a plan because the meeting room isn't number 11. You skip a call because the calendar date doesn't look mystical enough. On paper, it's harmless. Inside, it becomes a stall dressed as spirituality. The energy that wants to feed your next step gets burned maintaining a superstition. Ask yourself, am I building a life or an arrangement with a number? Here's a small story. Nina wants to pitch her idea to a producer. She's ready. She's done the work. The week she plans to email, 11:11 explodes everywhere. She decides she'll only send if the producer replies at 11:11, too, as proof. It's meant. Days pass. No email. The swell that could have carried her fades. When she finally writes, it's from hunger, not momentum. The trap wasn't belief. It was bargaining. She traded agency for a perfect omen. How do you step around that? Use the would I anyway test. When a cue appears, whisper, would I still take this step if the numbers vanished? If the answer is yes, proceed. If the answer is no, pause and check whether the step belongs to you or to the anxiety trying to buy certainty. 11:11 is a nudge, not a leash. Now the second trap, bypass. It wears calmer clothes. It says, I'll wait for a sign, and calls it patience. Waiting can be wise, but listen for the flavor. Patience has a pulse. You keep preparing in the meantime. Bypass has a lull. You do nothing and call it trust. Trust isn't inactivity. It's coordinated timing. You move the parts. You can move while the world moves the parts you can't. A concrete example. Jamal has a scholarship application due Friday. He sees 11:11 all week and decides, if the universe wants this, it'll open the door. He doesn't request transcripts. He doesn't ask for the reference letter. Friday comes. He scrambles. He misses the deadline by 15 minutes and tells himself, it wasn't meant to be. Maybe, but there's a simpler. Reading. The cue said walk, and he waited to be carried. So how do we keep the magic without losing the muscle? Install ground wires, simple practices that discharge excess charge from the sign into action. First, separate signal from instruction. A signal says, pay attention. An instruction says, do this. Unless you've already chosen a clear instruction, treat 11:11 as signal only. If an action pops up that you've been avoiding, great, that might be your next step. But don't invent a step just to honor the moment. Honor it by moving a real piece. Second, set a meaning budget. For a single day, allow yourself to mark 3 cues as significant. The rest are noted, smiled at, and released. Scarcity restores sense. When you can't elevate everything, you choose the ones tied to an actual decision on your table. This keeps you from drowning in GLINTS. Third, create a decision window. If I see the pattern 3 times today, I'll make a micro decision by 6 p.m. Micro, not final. Send the email. Book the 15-minute call. Outline the pitch. You respect. The tide without handing it the wheel. Forth. Check for reverse fitting. If the elevator stops on 12 and you tell yourself, well, 1 plus 2 is 3, and there are 3 ones in 111. Smile and stop. The mind is a brilliant pattern machine. Don't let it bully you into meaning. If the sign needs math, gymnastics, it's probably not a sign. Or at least, not one you need today. Fifth, keep 2 clocks, inner and outer. Inner is readiness. Outer is calendar. When the numbers flash, glance at both. If inner says yes and outer says not yet, choose the smallest prep that respects both. Clear a morning, gather a document, ask a question. If inner says no and outer says deadline, communicate, renegotiate, or deliver a trimmed version. The pattern is not a get out of time card. It's a get back to truth card. There's one more subtle trap: public prophecy. Announcing your leap the moment the signs cluster can feel exhilarating. It also empties the tank. Some momentum wants privacy while it roots. Consider a 72-hour hush. Let your action get 1 inch real before you tell the room. The sign sparked it. Now protect it. If you've been caught in either trap, there's no shame. It means you care. You're awake enough to notice. Smile at the part of you that wants guarantees. Then give it what it actually needs. A map with small, doable steps. In the next section, I'll hand you one 40-second protocol you can run. Every time 1111 appears, so the moment becomes movement instead of myth. Ready to turn the tide into traction? When 1111 pops up, don't make a wish. Make a move. Here's a tiny ritual you can run in real time. No crystals, no apps, no gymnastics. 40 seconds. 4 steps. It turns a flicker into traction. Stop whatever you're doing mid-scroll. Mid-email, mid-stare. Inhale through the nose for 4. Exhale for 4. Let your shoulders drop. Say quietly, I'm here. That's the doorway. You just switched from autopilot to pilot. Choose one word that names your current arc. One word only. Move, pitch, heal, study, end, begin. If you get 2, pick the truer one. Say it once, out loud or in your head. That word is the handle you'll pull. No poetry, just the lever. Your mind loves levers. Ask 2 questions, fast and honest. Question 1. What am I avoiding that matches this word? Question 2. What is the smallest step I can complete today toward it? Smallest means you can do it in 10 minutes or less without anyone's permission. Draft the subject line. Save a date. Put $10 into the new account. Open a doc and name it. Copy the application link. Text, "Can we talk Friday?" to the person who matters. If your step requires courage, slice it thinner. Make the call list before making the call. Write the first sentence, not the chapter. The tide respects small physics. Tiny action now. If you can do it inside these 10 seconds, do it. Hit send on the calendar invite. Star the email thread and type the first line. Drop a sticky note on your laptop. Friday submit. If it won't fit in 10 seconds, lock it in. Schedule it for a concrete time today, or set a visible cue you cannot ignore. Alarm titled with your one word. Document created and pinned. Say, done. The ritual ends when you make the step physical. That's the core. Stop. Name. Ask. Act. Run it every time the numbers show, and you convert coincidence into continuity. Let's walk it through with 3 everyday scenes. Work scene. You glance at the screen. 11:11. Pause. Shoulders drop. Word. Pitch. You've been circling a client idea with no ask. Ask, what am I avoiding? Sending a rough outline. Smallest step? Write 3 bullet points. Act. Open a new email. Subject, idea 3 lines. Paste bullets. Save as draft. Set a 3 p.m. send reminder. 10 seconds. Done. Heart scene. Phone lights. 11:11. Pause. Word. Repair. Avoiding. Owning your part in a sharp exchange. Smallest step. Text. Have 10 minutes later. I'd like to listen and own my peace. Act. Send the exact sentence. No easy. No defense. A door is now open that WA send single quotes T. Health scene. Watch buzzes. 11:11. Pause. Word. Build. Avoiding. Starting a beginner workout. Smallest step. Roll out the mat and cue a 7-minute video for. After lunch. Act. Set a 12:30 timer titled Mat. Place the mat where you'll trip over it. Physical cue beats noble intention. A few guardrails to keep the protocol clean. Keep the word single. 1 word cuts. 3 blur. If you're torn, ask which word would embarrass you to ignore, and pick that. Never let the question become a quiz. You're not searching for perfect meaning. You're extracting one honest action. If the mind tries to spin, smile and say, smallest step, and choose. Respect the 10-minute rule. If your smallest step needs an hour, it's not smallest. Shrink it. The power here is repetition, not heroics. Don't stack omens. You do not need 3 signs in a row to move. The ritual runs at first beep. If more cues come, great. You're already in motion. Close the loop once a day. At night, write 2 lines. Word chosen plus step taken. Move sent intro email. Repair scheduled. Call. Without a log, the day dissolves. With a log, you see the staircase you're building. Install an emergency version for crowded moments. Can't stop in a meeting? Glance at 11:11. Silently pick the word and mark a dot on your notebook. After the meeting, run the remaining steps. The ritual bends. It doesn't break. What if the step backfires? It will sometimes. That's fine. The point is not control. It's contact. You're training your system to pair salience with agency. Over a week, the steps compound. Over a month, the compound becomes a path. Breakthroughs don't arrive fully formed. They accrete like stalactites, drop by deliberate drop. And what about the mystical part? Keep it if it feeds you. Whisper a thanks to whatever you believe is listening. But keep your hands on the wheel. Grace loves momentum. Numbers are a chorus. You're the dancer. One last thing. If this protocol clicks, anchor it with a tiny ritual object. A blank card in your wallet. A note titled 1111 Moves on your phone. Each time you act, add a line. When doubt visits, open it and read what you've already built. Evidence. Quiet superstition better than lectures ever could. If this helped, drop 1 word below. Moving. It tells your future self you didn't just nod. You nudged. And if grounded, cinematic maps like this serve you. Subscribe. No noise. Just clear steps for threshold days. Crossing is quieter than you expect. No spotlight, no choir. Just a door you've been circling, suddenly open, and your foot choosing inside instead of out. People imagine breakthrough as fireworks. Most arrive like weather, changing a degree at a time, until you realize you're not shivering anymore. How do you know you crossed? Look for 3 signs. First, the pattern fades. Not because magic left, but because you're no longer standing at the threshold that required it. Second, your day gains edges, meetings trimmed, priorities with names. Third, resistance shifts flavor. It stops saying, "Who do you think you are?" and starts whispering, "Okay, keep going." That's the hum of a new normal warming up. There's a word for this phase: integration. The leap is one moment. The landing is many. You stack tiny proofs that the move wasn't a mood. Simple measures help. Keep a one-line ledger for 30 days titled Crossings. Each night, write a single sentence. Action plus effect. Sent portfolio, got meeting date. Took 7-min workout, slept deeper. Requested reference mentor, replied yes. No fanfare, just evidence. Brains love receipts. Add 2 check-in questions at breakfast. What kind of courage do I need today? Start, continue, or stop? Which single step would make tonight's ledger proud? If the answers repeat for a week, good. Repetition is the sound of momentum, not monotony. You're laying track under a train already moving. Let's revisit our 3 companions. Louisa, the designer, didn't quit with a flourish. She refreshed her portfolio on 3 lunch breaks, sent 2 emails, received 1 reply that mattered. The numbers didn't disappear. They just stopped being headlines. They became footnotes. She knew she'd crossed when Tuesday felt like hers again. The runner raced. No personal record, no viral photo, just a finish line and a quiet cry in Hin. The grass after. The week after, 11:11 still blinked twice. She smiled, stretched, and wrote, "I keep promises to my legs." That sentence became a spine for other promises. Mateo submitted the sabbatical application with room to spare. The day he hit send, he expected a cosmic drum roll. Nothing. He made dinner. He washed dishes. He slept. 2 weeks later, an email. Approved. He looked up at the kitchen clock out of habit. 7:43. Ordinary time. He laughed. I guess I don't need the knock to hear the door anymore. What if you cross and wobble? You will. The mind loves old furniture. It will try to drag a few chairs from the past into your new room. Let it try. Then ask, does this chair serve the life I'm in now? If not, donate it 1 habit, 1 meeting, 1 expectation at a time. Integration is less about conquering doubt and more about editing your environment to make the brave thing easy. A word on community. Crossings go farther with witnesses, not a stadium. A circle. 2 friends is plenty. Share your ledger weekly. Trade 10-minute calls titled, Kept Moves. You don't need advice. You need mirrors. If you can't name such people yet, become one first. Comment on a stranger's small win. Congratulate a colleague on an unflashy milestone. The world stabilizes around the behaviors it celebrates. And the pattern? It will return, not as a test, as a tempo. Every new threshold brings its own cluster. When it does, you won't turn it into a cage or a crown. You'll breathe, name, ask, act. Again, a practiced bow to the next door, if you're listening to. This with a private longing in your pocket. Here's a last scene. You stand at a window at night. The city ticks. Somewhere, someone you'll meet because of the step you're about to take is tying their shoes, turning off a lamp, smoothing a sheet. They don't know your name yet. They're part of life. That becomes possible when you move. 11:11 appears on the stove. You don't take a picture. You put on your shoes. The future rarely arrives as a miracle. It arrives as a calendar event you created last week, as a document you named when the numbers blinked, as a call that starts with an honest sentence. That's the spine of a breakthrough. Attention trained, action taken, life rearranged. Quietly, thoroughly like tide. And if one day the pattern goes silent for a long stretch, don't panic. Silence is also a sign. It means you're in the middle of the ocean, not at the shore. Keep your heading. Keep your ledger. Keep your circle close. And when the next cluster comes, you'll smile not for permission, but for partnership. The numbers glow. You nod. You cross.